You got people around you who love you. That's happening in this moment. And enjoying the gift of everything that we have is so important. So, we had a conversation, Cliff was talking about the fact that when he was still in his teens, he bought a new car. And I was just dumbfounded. When I was 15, I remember just going, oh, if only I had a car. I lived in Edmonton. You couldn't get any, everything was so a long way away, and I just longed to have a car. And I would go by these old cars, and and I go, well, that'd be great to have that. It didn't matter how bad condition it was. So when I turned 16, actually a little bit before I turned 16, I bought a car. I bought a 62 Corvair for $65. And I totally got ripped off. This car was, show the next slide here. This was more like the car that I had. It was just pathetic. You'd start it off, it's got the engine in the rear, and the whole of the interior would fill up with smoke until the engine heated up. And the steering was more like a suggestion. The brakes were horrible. It spewed out black smoke. Everywhere I went, it was such an embarrassment. You could see me coming, there'd be just this black smoke. And my friend's dad didn't allow me to park anywhere near his house because it just vomited oil all over everything. It had this quirk. It would, if you turned left, it would stall. Right was okay, but left, it would stall. And one day I was driving to school and I turned left and it stalled, and I kind of pulled over to the side, and it was a bus stop, and I ended up inadvertently taking somebody for a ride all the way across town because he thought I was stopping to pick him up. And he was big and I wasn't going to tell him anything different. The thing is, I was so happy with that car. I was content. I knew it was garbage, but it was a sense of freedom that I had, that I could get in the car and go places in Edmonton, in the city. You need transportation. I was so satisfied with that. I remember, wanting better jobs at a high school and so on, and resenting the fact sometimes that I didn't have the job that was taking me where I wanted to go, and I was young. I just want to read from Ecclesiastes 3:19 to 13. What do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden of God has laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is a gift from God. Have you ever had a job where you just thought, this is, can't do it anymore? It brings no happiness. And yet, this verse seems to indicate that this is a gift from God. Working, being productive is a gift from God. Elsewhere in Ecclesiastes, he talks about the toil. It's toil. It's hard, and yet it's a gift from God. So enjoy it. I know people who work for retirement. They hate their job, and when retirement comes, it's going to be just so much better. And yet, when they retire, sometimes it's worse. The meaning of their life and all that kind of stuff goes away. People who want a new spouse. I'm not happy, if only it was somebody else. Wanting different kids. Nobody's willing to admit to that, but I know it's there. Satisfaction with what you have is a lot of work. So, and little things can destroy your satisfaction. I was over at Scott's the other day. Scott has a television that I think he got from a drive-in theater. It's so huge. Covers the whole wall. And it's wonderful. Pixelated and like just the clear and everything. And he's got a little sound bar, I think. Don't you have a sound bar? Yeah, everything. And I go home, and I have to sit about this far from my television to get the same experience. Because I don't have but years ago, I would have been so happy with what I have now for size. That's how old I am. We get agitated when we become used to having the best. And very often what happens is we focus on what we don't have, or the inadequacy of what we don't have. And we niggle away and fret about what is not perfect in our lives. And this is, I believe, one of those things that is just soul destroying. Dissatisfaction kills our joy in what we have. And we're always imagining a life with that one thing that will make us happy, with that one thing that will make life easier or more secure. Some people have seen so many disappointments in their life. This expectation wasn't met, that expectation wasn't met. That person wasn't what I thought he would be. That job was, I thought it was going to be great, but it's not, etc., etc. And the disappointments pile up to the point where they're frightened to experience joy. They're frightened to put any weight on anything for their satisfaction because they know it's going to disappoint me in the end. That's a rough place to be. One of the options to that is Buddhism. The Buddha, when he was working out his philosophy, decided that all he could see is pain and suffering and old age and dying and all these negative things in the world. And he wanted to be relieved of that. He started off as a Hindu, which meant you were reincarnated. And he didn't see anybody getting reincarnated into better and better and better. What he saw was this cycle that went on forever, and it was full of misery and death. So he decided that getting rid of the want was the answer. If I don't want anything, I will not be disappointed. I will not let anything touch me. I will get rid of all my expectations, all my desires, and that way I'll be free of this cycle. Christians are opposite to that. The Bible teaches opposite to that. John Piper has some books that really flesh all this out. The book Desiring God is just, if you haven't read it, it's really worth a read. Because it couches the gospel in something that's quite wonderful, which is our joy. He calls himself a Christian hedonist. A hedonist is somebody whose philosophy is just chase after whatever joy you can get. That's the only meaning in life, is to chase after pleasure, to chase after everything that is not pleasurable, to get rid of pain, to do all those things. Because nothing else matters. You live and you die. Why experience pain? Just live after, and I'm simplifying hedonism terribly, but that's the core of it. And God has given everything to enjoy. That's part of the secret, is we have a God that's in control of anything, everything. That God can do whatever He likes, and He's wise, and He loves us. And so everything that He created for us should be a joy. Food and drink and friends and family and work, as we just found out in Ecclesiastes, work, toil, is supposed to be a joy for us. It's a gift from God. There's nothing withheld from us. So why aren't we more joyful? What has gone wrong? What is the problem with us? Think of what you have. Think of the generosity of God to you. Now, we live in a culture that is the most, we live in the age of luxury. Even 100 years ago, 50 years ago, people would have looked at us and went, oh, look at how they live. If you go back hundreds of years, it would have been a miracle that we would be warm at night and cool in the day and able to drive vast distances, and whatever life is easy for us. And we have so much, and we have more than we need. We belong to one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Not only that, I look around and a lot of us are sort of at the upper end of that, middle to upper. But there's people in our country that have much less than us. And then around the world, you look at a situation and you start realizing, my goodness, I am blessed of God. And because I live in luxury, I don't acknowledge it. Because I live with all these things, that it's an expectation that I have, that I will go from wealth to wealth. And anything that would threaten to take that away from us, to take our comfort away from us, is unthinkable for us. And that's why I think we struggle a little bit with this COVID. because we're just not used to dealing with any interruption in our lives, anything that binds us, anything that makes it so that we're uncomfortable. We're not used to that, and we resent it. We often ruin what God has given to us right now, right this day, by wanting something different than what we have this day. We are, I think, naturally disposed to being disappointed. There is something deep within us, and most of us at one point in time has to deal with this dissatisfaction in life. Dissatisfaction in life. It's not worth it. It's just miserable. I've been there. And our problem is not with desire. It's not even that we desire the wrong things. And hear me carefully. We all want the same things. We're created with these needs. We want love. We want meaning. We want security. We want relationships. We want all these things that when we get them bring us absolute joy. That's what we want. The problem is that we try to get all those things without the context of God. And so our desires become warped. They become twisted. They become evil. We become corrupted with trying to fill valid needs in our life in an invalid way. We do not know how to meet the desires of our heart. And this is where our relationship with God comes in. Psalm 37, 3 and 4. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. If you have evil desires in your heart, then not so much. But your evil desires is always based on a good desire. It's just been warped. It's just been twisted. Our desires should be for a healthy relationship with God. If we can do that, we will glow with joy. God is the giver of summer, and he's the giver of winter. He's the creator of work. He's the creator of play. He's the one that gives us unlimited love. What we most desire in our life is this love, to be loved, to feel loved. He gives us that. And he forgives us when we seek our joy without him, when we try to find our joy in something other. Jeremiah 2, 11 and 13. My people have exchanged their glorious God for worthless idols. Be appalled at this, you heavens, and shudder with great horror, declares the Lord. My people have committed two sins. They have forsaken me, the spring of living water, and have dug their own cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. We need to start appreciating what God has given, rather than be focusing on the dissatisfaction of having a project that's not done, or having a certain expectation not be met. those little things that aren't perfect, they are very often what consumes our minds. And we steal the joy away from ourselves. So what has God given you? The summer. He's given us a summer. Well, He's given us a nice day today. There's no forest fires.
Amen.
Couldn't be a forest fire if you used a flamethrower right now. Our jobs, our relationships, our wealth, our food, our sleep. But if God is not at the center, then all these things have a tendency to cause us grief. And they cause evil in our lives. Because if we're dissatisfied with something, we're always trying to reach for something different. We're always trying to reach for something that is more than what we have. And we get so embedded in these things that are just inadequate. We have half a congregation here. It feels inadequate. But we have half of a congregation here. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for that. Praise the Lord for that. Two things I want to end with. The first is that God wants you to enjoy the gifts that He has given you. He wants you to be satisfied with what you have, even if it's not much. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't work to pursue and get things and so on. It's just that your satisfaction, the drive for that should not be dissatisfaction. What makes us happy is going, wow, look at what I have. And acknowledging that it is God who is the giver. Being satisfied with what we have means appreciating that what we have, being a gift from God, is a symbol and a sign of His love for us. That's the context. If you take that away, if you go, well, God must not love me because I don't have this, that, or the other thing, you destroy the relationship with God, because what He has given you is wonderful. What He is giving you to be satisfied with is Himself. And we can't